What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Daily Fantasy Breakdown over on Superdraft. Yes, we're not sponsored by Superdraft. Yes, we're giving you Superdraft content. And yes, you need to sign up for Superdraft. If you haven't signed up for it already, sign up using promo code Grinders. Get a free deposit bonus up to 50% of your total deposit, up to $500. Plus, you get $50 free instant deposit right when you deposit. It's pretty much free $50 in Superdraft cash. You play through it and it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. You can go buy a nice sandwich. You can go take your lady out on a nice dinner. Or if you're alone, you can get Postmates. Either one works for me too. But we're going to be breaking down all the Superdraft stuff on today's NBA slate. Again, guys, get signed up. They just partnered with Caesars Entertainment. Yes, that's the same Caesars Entertainment where you see all over Vegas. They own Caesars Palace. They own Bally's, Flamingo, Rio, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. There's way too many of them to count. But you now earn Caesars rewards points over on Superdraft. So want to get a free hotel room at some point this year when the Kofifi is over? Then you can get that through players points through Superdraft. So get signed up for it, get in the action, and get some of this free money. Lots of overlay going around. Big Super Bowl competitions that you can make a lot of money on. $4,000 entries all the way down to $1 entries. Get them all in. But let's break down today's slate. Yesterday did not go too well for me. As you can see over here on the left on my screen, my best position was 40th and just a whole bunch of cashing, barely doubling my money. But you know what? That happens. GPP's big 20% profit up for our 20% of the total field is paid to first place. So it's fairly top heavy, but there's always overlay. Yesterday, as you can see, only 4,500 of 5.7 thousand entered the contest. So big amount of overlay. Probably expecting the same thing tonight. Probably expecting the same thing for the Super Bowl. So again, get signed up using the promo code Grinders. But let's look at today's slate. If you haven't played Superdraft before, it's real simple. It's all based on a multipliers. You can play anyone you want, and every single person has a multiplier. We see over here on my spreadsheet, which contains the RG median, floor, and ceiling projections here, exactly what everyone's projected for. So Enes Kanter projected at a 1.85x multiplier. His projection is 66. That is his RG projection multiplied by 1.85, giving us a median of 66 points. Same thing with Dame, projected for around 54 points. 54 times 1.15 equals 60. So every single thing in this spreadsheet here is accounting for the multiplier. And again, you can play everyone. You get 3 guards, 3 forwards, 1 center. That's what you get. You can swap anyone out at any given time, so you don't have to worry about 2v2 swaps later on in the game. If you throw in tonight Oladipo or John Wall, they don't end up playing, boom, easy. Global player swap over to anyone you want, or just go into each lineup, swap them over to anyone you want at the guard position whose game has not started. So super simple, super cut and dry. Play anyone you want. So if you just want people to root for, you can do that. But let's get down to the breakdown here. Let's start off with the center position since you only get one center to play. And tonight, like many other nights, it's Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter has been fantastic. They still have him priced as if Nurkic was still playing. So 1.85 multiplier. We see his median projection, like 50% of the time, he's going to hit 66 or more points. It's 66. The ceiling projection of the next closest guy is Kristaps, 74.7. That's not that much higher than the median projection. My plan tonight, lock in Kanter. Just lock him in. It's that simple. I plan on doing that universally in every single lineup. I did the other night, worked out great. Did the night before that, did not work out great because of the blowout. So the only way that this doesn't end up hitting is if this game ends up blowing out. So if you want decent chance, if you're playing Kanter, have a setup where you play one guy from the other side, which is a little bit tough because Embiid would probably be my favorite guy. But luckily, there is multiple positional eligibility. We see Embiid right here. He is the 3rd highest projected center. He is power forward and center eligible. So you can throw him in that forward spot. So it is possible to throw him in a lineup with Kanter, unlike over on FanDuel, where you can only play one of the two. So it makes it way easier to game stack because you can throw literally anyone in your lineup in that game, as many as you want, up to 5, up to 6 maybe. I don't know. I can't remember the exact maximum, but you can throw them all in and they all have multipliers. So all of them actually have a chance to hit their value. But I'm planning on locking in Kanter. Jokic isn't in a good matchup going up against the Lakers, but he is Jokic. He can go for 70-plus points over on this, and he has a 1.05x multiplier, not the highest. Capella, second end of a back-to-back, going up against Utah. A little bit tough there. Porzingis, as of right now, we have no injury news on him, whether he's resting or not. But second end of a back-to-back might be a little tough here. 1.3x multiplier is pretty good when you consider that he's going up against Golden State. Wiseman is still out. Looney is now out. So it's actually a decent matchup for him. Don't mind that. After that, we got Gobert, 1.3x multiplier. Not a terrible matchup going up against Atlanta. Capella should steal some boards away from him, but still a guy that can go for big outings on any given night. This is a site, Superdraft, that has part DK, part FanDuel scoring. So 3 points for blocks and steals, minus 1 point for turnovers. Everything else is the same as over on DraftKings. So you get the double-double bonus. You get the half-point bonus on each three-pointer. So a little bit of a mix between both. Right now, we have Gobert pegged for 50 points. Not great. We have all these guys drastically below Cantor. So I'm planning on locking in Cantor. I'm going to differentiate elsewhere. It wouldn't surprise me if I had 20% Capella, because he is the guy that has gone for 16 different matchups, has gone for a crazy outings. Yes, the second one back-to-back. Unlikely they'll get into the mid-30s in terms of minutes, and this game does have to stay close, and it's a tough one. But he still has 20 board, 20 point, and 10 block upside. We've already seen him get 10 blocks before, which is why he has the possibility in tournaments to beat Cantor by enough to really make him necessary in GPPs. So as of right now, probably going close to all in on Cantor, if not all in, with maybe a sprinkle of Capella there at the center position. That's my plan for tonight. In cash, you absolutely lock in Cantor. He's the one stone cold lock for me, especially if Lillard ends up missing. But in tournaments, Cantor's going to come in at 70 to 80% ownership. So it's entirely viable to play Jokic, to play Capella, to play Gobert, to play Kristaps, or to play Embiid, just because there is that volatility that can happen on any given night, and this game can turn into a blowout. Plus, he can get into foul trouble going up against Embiid. So it's not a clear, 100% he is going to be in the winning lineup, but I still think that his floor is high enough and his ceiling is high enough where I'm just going to eat the chalk. Let's move on over to forward. Decent amount of forward options today. The guy that immediately pops off is Luka. So Luka had a good game last night. Surprised me a little bit because he has been a little bit streaky, but showing some good stuff last night. Second in back-to-back, but the matchup versus Golden State is fantastic. Golden State, not a great defensive team, fairly fast-paced team, one of the fastest in the league. So it's a good matchup for Dallas here. Luka coming off a decent game, again, second in back-to-back, but he's young. He should play plenty of minutes. 1.05x multiplier, so he doesn't have the biggest ceiling in the world. 76 compared to Cantor's 100, but this isn't the biggest slate. There's only 4 or 5 games. I can't actually remember the exact total, but 4 or 5 games. So there's not as many options as we would like. Looking at the median outcomes here, we have 60 for Luka, 57 for Wood, 54 for Embiid, 50 for Kristaps, and those are the only guys in the 50 range. Generally, we have 5 or 6 that are right in that range every single night, but today, just not where it's at. Looking at all the rest of these options, yes, Harris tends to end up around the 40-point range almost any given night. It's a good matchup versus Portland. He's mostly a guy that I'm bringing back along with Embiid and Cantor and maybe Lillard. If Lillard ends up playing, that changes the slate quite a bit, but he's mostly a guy that I'm throwing into game stacks, assuming this game stays close. If this game stays close, Cantor stays out of foul trouble. Both Cantor and Lillard, if he plays, crush. Embiid and Harris likely do pretty well. So he's mostly a guy that I'm throwing in game stacks. Embiid, I'll throw in regardless, just because his floor is good, just because his ceiling is good. But again, it's mostly going to be lineups where I have Cantor in there. So I'm using him at this forward eligibility. Porzingis, already mentioned him. Again, watch out for stuff. Clark's an interesting option because that multiplier is fairly high at 1.6. He should get the minutes. He has been producing. And just anytime you get a multiplier that high, it always offers you some upside, especially with bigger guys who can get a few blocks in the game, who can get a few steals in the game. So those 3 points with steals at a 1.6x multiplier now become almost 5 full points. So he gets 3 on accident or 3 over a short period of time. You've now just gained 15 points. That's 30% of his total median projection. So that shows the volatility in this over on Superdraft when you get guys with high multipliers. Any given night, you can absolutely crush. Look at last night. I'm just looking at the top points guy on the slate. We get Halliburton. Halliburton went for 72 points. He was one of the highest scoring guys on the slate. Baisley went for 74 points. He was one of the highest scoring guys on the slate. Again, at a 1.75x multiplier. That's how it shows you how volatile it is. In the first quarter, he got 17 real points, just regular fantasy points before his multiplier. So he was already sitting at 35 before the first quarter even ended. Didn't have a great game the rest of the game, just had a decent game the rest of the game. But it just goes to show you how important this multiplier is. Let's look at the rest of the forwards here. Kyle Anderson, fine. LeBron James, if Anthony Davis misses, use James. If Anthony Davis plays and LeBron misses, you can use Bron. So it's pretty much just you only play one if the other one's out. Otherwise, you don't have a ton of ceiling. You don't have a ton of floor. Just not great spots, even though going up against Denver with both of them in there, you're just not seeing a ton of upside with a 1x multiplier. Better off going with a guy like Luka or any of these other guys who should get their normal usage, whereas LeBron and Davis, we know what they are when they're both in the game. Keep looking. Simmons, always a triple-double upside in any given matchup. Portland's a fantastic matchup. Just worried about the blowout. Gary Trent Jr., definitely an interesting guy if Lillard ends up playing or if Lillard ends up missing. He's been taking a ton of shots really recently, absolutely chucking, been playing out of his mind, but that 1.75x multiplier makes him have a massive ceiling. The other night he went for 75. He was in the winning lineup, and he could potentially do that again, especially if Lillard ends up missing or if Lillard ends up playing. Still same scenario because he is going to take a boatload of shots. So he's definitely a guy on the list. Michael Porter Jr. always can chuck, always worth a while for tournaments. 1.65x multiplier. After that, not really a ton I'm seeing here. Potentially, if Lillard's out, Melo could crack the starting lineup. I'm not exactly sure what his multiplier is, but it could be, I think it's 1.65x. So you might be finding a few more forwards, a few more possible plays over in the Portland game if Lillard ends up missing. So something to watch out for, plus potential guys like Jaysean and other guys in the Houston game if both Wall and Oladipo is out. Still haven't gotten news to that, and that'll largely dictate things. But as of right now, it looks like Wall will play. It looks like Oladipo will not play. Let's go over to the guard position here. And again, guy that immediately stands out, every single slate. They finally dropped down his multiplier a little bit to 1.15x. It was at 1.2, and he was getting 80% ownerships every night. Tonight, again, currently questionable with an abdominal problem. He could end up playing. He could end up missing. But again, you can always immediately swap. So nice part about Superdraft, Dame gets ruled out 5 minutes before the game. You immediately hop on the app, go to global player swap him out to Curry, who I believe has a later game, or swap him out to his exact swap to Gary Trent Jr. or Anthony Simmons. Either one of those guys can go off for a huge game. It just makes it super simple, so you don't have to worry about it. Just have your RG alerts on. RG alerts give you the information as soon as it drops. Always quick. Download the RG app. Look at me just plugging everything. But in any case, Lillard, the top option here at 60 points, slightly above Luka, who does have both guard and forward eligibility. Both these guys likely to come in at 60 to 80% on the smaller slate. Just how it works on these slates sometimes. Steph, big game the other night, came in only at 30%. With a big game the other night and slight drop in his multiplier, I'm expecting him to come in at about 50% tonight. John Wall is probably my favorite, though. John Wall has been crushing recently. With Oladipo out, he should get a large amount of usage. Memphis, a good matchup here. Wall is probably my favorite option, but if you're playing cash, you're most likely going Dame, Luka, Steph, Wall, going three of those guys, probably throwing Luka in at the forward position. But in cash, these are the guys that you want to go with right here. These are the top options, and then it kind of drops off a little bit. Trey in a rough matchup here going up against Utah. They've been crushing lately. Second end of a back-to-back. Trey at 1.2, definitely in play for tournaments because it can go for 40 real-life points in any given matchup and has upside for more in other categories. Eric Gordon could be a huge play today. And also, I didn't mention with Christian Wood over at the forward position, if Wall's out and Oladipo's out, then Wood is going to be an absolute usage monster and is pretty much a lock and load for me. But Eric Gordon should be in for a decent amount of upside. 1.7x multiplier is good. Donovan Mitchell, again, possibility of a blow up, but 1.3x multiplier, he can absolutely crush that. He's a guy that I'm going in for tournaments if I'm bringing it back with either Capella or Trae Young or both. Ja Morant, again, potential for a blowout. He has had his minutes capped occasionally and hasn't been crushing. The 1.35x multiplier might not be high enough. Not as good as a guy like John Wall, not as good as a guy like Mitchell, but he's still very much in play for tournaments. Going to come in a lot lower ownership than these guys right up here because, again, his median projection is drastically lower. So high risk, high reward. Looking after that, it gets a little bit tough. Like Conley, yes, can crush. Again, not a guy that I'm using unless I'm bringing someone back on Atlanta. Kyle Anderson was on the winning lineup the other night, but not someone I'm looking forward to playing. If Wall and Oladipo are out, then I don't expect Houston's defense to be as good as it has been recently. But he's definitely a guy you can use in tournaments. Gary Trent, again, a guy I'm using regardless, but has both forward and shooting guard eligibility. Dylan Brooks been shooting a little bit better recently. Clarkson, a usage monster off the bench with a decent multiplier at 1.65. These guys are all in play. Everyone's kind of just a tournament flyer. Like this is your core here, and this is everyone's core. So differentiating, you get a drastically different lineup than a lot of people by just using these guys. If you fade all these guys, you're not going to have a single guard over 15% ownership in all likelihood, unless John Wall is ruled out. That's pretty much it. So pretty much stick with these guys in cash. In tournaments, you can go with any one of these guys, but I wouldn't go too far overboard. It's going to give you a large amount of upside, but the potential floor, if Luka goes with 70, then you're just crushed. You're just destroyed in most sentences. So kind of stay away from it, but that's it. We'll break down the last night winning lineup. It was Pedro Ponix here. Fox had a decent game. Wasn't necessarily needed because a lot of guys went for 60, but he was just one of those guys that was in the same range. Dow, same thing, 58 points. Halliburton was the pinnacle of it. Like he got 1.9x. He crushed. 70 points was one of the bigger nights on the night. Tatum, same thing, 70 points, went off, highly owned, but still a guy that was needed. Zion was a surprise. If the game wasn't a blowout, he could have gone for 90 points over to here on Superdraft, but only went for 70, and he was pretty much done after the third quarter because of that blowout there. Basley, like I said, big first quarter, high multiplier. We knew what was going to happen if they got full complement of minutes over on OKC, then they were going to crush their multipliers, and they did. Even though they ended up winning, I had Houston against the spread. It did not work out well for me. Whoops. And Porzingis here had a good night. It was a good matchup versus Atlanta. Decent multiplier at 1.35x. Again, maybe he's sitting tonight. Maybe he's not. Who knows? But the top play at this position was actually Pirtle. There it is. Pirtle. Jakob Pirtle. There we go. I got it. I always forget things too early in the morning, but he crushed. He was at a 1.85x multiplier again with LMA out. That was a spot where we knew that he'd get 30 to 40 minutes. Ended up with 35 minutes, which was on the higher end of his projection, a little bit higher than the RG projection had him at, and absolutely crushed it. He ended up with 75 DK points. Wasn't in the winning lineup, but this guy had enough of the other guys that crushed and avoided Keldon Johnson, who was at a 1.8x multiplier last night. Absolutely crushed my heart and soul because I had 80% of him. He was 70% owned and just dead lineups all over the place. You have zero chance of winning on most given nights if you have a guy that puts up 20 points. Even at 1.8x multiplier, he only had 11 points, so that turned into 20 and just tanked every single lineup with him in it. So not really a chance to make any of that up. Just happens a lot of nights, but you know what? It's daily fantasy sports. We have every single day to do this. So get on signed up over at Superdraft. Again, promo code Grinders to get a nice little deposit bonus, nice little instant bonus, and a chance at a contest that they are running, a raffle where Caesar's Palace or Caesar's Entertainment will be giving away 100,000 tier points. Yes, that's 100,000 tier points. Good for $1,000 at any of their resorts. So get on into that chance at $1,000 at Caesar's Entertainment, which is a fantastic place. And you get all those other bonuses over on Superdraft. So perfect time, overlay, free money, free deposit bonus, free raffle. All those things by using the promo code Grinders. So get on signed up over there. It's been fun, guys. Again, if you have any comments or questions, drop them in the comment section over on YouTube. I want to know what else you want to know over on this site. I want to know what strategy questions you have, stuff like that. We'll be coming out with more content in the coming weeks, having these up a few times a week. So get on into that comment section. Let me know what you want me to do. But it's been fun. I've got to get over to Vegas for the Superdraft party this weekend at Caesar's Palace, the aforementioned Caesar's Palace. So I got to get on the road. I'm out of here. See you, kids.
you.